So the last couple of days have brought a number of angry people into my live stream. And the people were asking, what is your take on the current tempo situation? Which led me to realize that there is a tempo situation, because my tempo situation is that it's currently, you know, kind of like the average mall. It's completely dead and unused. So when I started looking around trying to figure out what the hell is going on and why is everyone angry about the tempo, you very quickly stumble upon photos like this one.
Welcome to my channel.
You're going to see people posting screenshots of them absolutely
Welcome to
printing up to 200 divine worth an hour inside of the temple. Okay, so what's actually happening and why are people mad? Well, in the beginning of the league, when the temple came out, it was very quickly established that the league mechanic is sort of unfun, takes a large amount of time to set up. Primarily, one of the points of feedback is like you have to run 6 maps to even attempt to do it once, which gives you 6 rooms, and 2 of those rooms are removed after, so you only gain 4 rooms. And basically, if you do the math on it, it takes hundreds of maps to get the tempo set up. So the time investment required into the tempo is like pretty insane, and the rewards were lackluster. This actually had the effect of them rushing out a patch in order to buff the mechanic more in a much needed way, to be quite honest. But what you're seeing here is people figured out, some people are calling it exploit or bug or abuse. I'm going to use it, unintended game mechanics or whatever terminology. It doesn't really matter where you settle on the argument. But what happened was people figured out that there's a zone that they can reset in that makes the Val tempo appear right next to the checkpoint. And basically you can just farm the entry to this temple like astronomically quicker as compared to like even in-game. So people are literally making new characters to farm the tempo for in-game juicing, like some of the most juice this game's ever seen, probably the most juice other than like the ritual exploit, okay? So that this game has ever seen by actually being in the campaign, which seems a little weird, right? So you see some people like being upset by this, and understandably so to some degree. However, I want to stop for a moment before we talk about the rest of this and what's going on, because I want to make the point here real quick that there's a well-known Pox clip, if you've been around the PoE community for a while, in which he states that if you start comparing yourself to another person in Path of Exile that you are watching, that is when the game starts becoming unfun for you. And I would actually very much quote that same thing back to you in this scenario. I have been playing this league because I literally get paid to play it. It is literally my job, and the people that are farming this have made my entire league worth of currency. I'm talking 100+ hours in less than 1 hour with this strategy. So I have been grinding like a no-life, and the people that are using this are able to do all of my time in a bit, which would lead people like myself to think, well, I'm just fucking useless. I can't do anything. Like, why would I even bother playing if some guy's out there in 30 minutes doing my entire net worth, you know, in 30 minutes? Like, what's even the point? In fact, you don't have to go far. Even in the comments of this own post, you're going to see people like either between calling for bans or saying they want to quit, you know, and all of this shit. And 100%, I'm just going to say it now, like, this is not the first nor the last time that this will happen in the game. And if you quit the league every time that you see some dude out there making a fuckload of divines more than you, guess what? You're not playing any of the leagues, because this is going to happen almost every time. GGG is always going to make some kind of mistake, or some person's going to figure out the min-max strategy, or there's going to be an abuse situation or an exploit of some kind. And because of that, if some guy figures that out, then you're going to be quitting every league. I'm going to tell you right now that you can play this league and have an absolutely fine time. I watched a Matho video this morning, which I don't think I've ever agreed with a video more. And he says in that video, and he goes through like different fun items like Headhunter and the new unique spear and all of these items, and showcases that prices are the same, if not actually gone down, and that the impact to you as the average player is mostly, and I'm paraphrasing here, just, you know, psychological one. Basically, it's based upon you comparing yourself to another person. And I think that is exactly this situation, okay? Because if you're picking up every single Exalt to trade into Divine, absolutely that ratio is going to skyrocket. It already does skyrocket every league, but it's going to skyrocket more so now because of this type of situation. However, If you're picking up exalts to turn into divine, you're getting ass blasted by all of the people that are out there juicing just normal maps literally anyway. Okay, this was happening before this mechanic. You were getting outpaced. So if you want my advice personally, if you're one of these people that are feeling really pissed off and bummed out about the economy, you could try using the currency the way God intended, actually using it to craft your gear as you get it, and just say fuck all of that stuff literally anyway. Or you could just ignore this and play the game anyway, because honestly, if you actually look at the impact of things like Headhunter, etc., like the fun items that maybe you're saving up for, they're the same goddamn price. Basically is what it boils down to, or actually getting cheaper because people are printing more of them in this thing and then dispersing it. Okay, you know, like Jesus with the breads are getting duplicated here in this temple and then sent out to the peasants to feed them, and that's sort of like a very similar situation we're seeing here. Okay, so now the juicy part that people probably want to know: is this a bug? Is this an exploit? Should we be mad at people, and should we be banning people? You know who I actually blame for this? I blame GGG, let's be honest. This is not like the first time that resetting a checkpoint has been an issue. Like, this has happened before. It was already in the game. I know this for a fact, because if you didn't know this, back in 0.3, you could actually reset on a checkpoint and regenerate essences. So if you found a greater essence, it would snapshot that there's a greater essence in the location you found it. You could pick up the greater essence, you could reset the checkpoint, walk right back, and there would be another greater essence, another random greater essence, and you could do this for as many times as every map has like a limit to how many things it can generate, and you could do that up to the limit of what it would be. So you could get like 12 greater essences per instance or something like that. It was just, you know, stupid, basically. Well, I reported this, and it was fixed within the league, okay? And when I found that out, I just like, hey, that's a fuck up. You know, I found that out playing through the campaign 0.3 the first time going through Act 4, because they forgot about this in Act 4. It seems like the same mistake of like resetting the actual, you know, mechanic next to the checkpoint is still in the game. What's going to have, if it's not one person, it's going to be another person. Like, somebody is going to find the strategy that makes the most kinks happen, and they're going to receive those amount of kinks. And if that is a problem, the company needs to make sure that there is, you know, less of these bugs as possible. I think it looks boring as fuck to do, but like, if you're someone who likes to chase kinks, I understand. And resetting mechanics in an ARPG is not exactly like the most uncommon thing in ARPGs in general. And I think the reality of it is that if you're getting caught up in all of this anger and everything, you're kind of looking for a reason to not play the game. Like, if you're like, well, I might log in and you see this and get dissuaded, like, you're not really trying to like have fun and play. Like, you can just play the game, dude. You can still play it. You do not have to get to the end game and actually get 50 divine in order for the game to be an enjoyable experience for you. And honestly, you might actually learn something from using your currencies as opposed to, you know, just using the currencies only to buy something. You might figure out how to actually craft, and then instead of having to save money up to actually buy the gear that gets crafted, that's going so much up in price you can never afford it, you can just craft it yourself. It took me about 30 minutes to figure out how to craft gloves, and I made like 30 divine selling gloves, and it only cost me like 2 divine worth of currency to buy and craft the gloves. You might be like, oh well, you know, here, let me show you. It might be like, oh well, you are a streamer, you gotta figure out. It's like, bro, this was literally as easy as like buying white items, slamming the perfects until I got strength and life, slamming it with a perfect regal until I got hybrid life, and then just slamming it with normal exalts, and then using the essence that did increased effective socketed items, and then volleying it and hope I get third socket. It's literally just using the orbs. And then, you know what? One of those pair of gloves sold for 15 divine immediately. Like, you could learn how to actually make the items by using your current and hope I get third socket. It's literally just normal exalts, and then using the essence that did increased effective socketed items, and then volleying it and hope I get third socket. It's literally just using the orbs. And then, you know what? One of those pair of gloves sold for 15 divine immediately. Like, you could learn how to actually make the items by using your currency, or by saving up and then, you know, using. I mean, these items aren't even expensive to get the essences to actually craft it. So I would probably push you in the direction of like actually learning to play the game and using this time of the economy's fucked, which, I mean, it depends upon what you're trying to do, I guess, but like I'm having a hard time finding the impact outside of Exalted Divine Ratio that would really ruin the game for you. You can use this time, if you really feel that way, to learn the parts of the game that normally are locked out to you because you are focused on the economy of like, I can't use my chaoses, I can't use my exalts because I need to save them to trade with. Now is a good time to utilize the currencies that are being dropped that you would have had anyway to actually learn the game, to be able to sharpen your weapons for the economic PvP of next league. If that's what you really need something to do, maybe I push you in that direction, okay? That's just my take on the situation. You're welcome to disagree, and I'm sure there's going to be a million people in the comments calling me a fucking idiot for not calling for the ban and being angry and, you know, raging and all of that. But my result of this is just, I'm playing SSF because it's something to do at the moment, and I'm just trying to have fun with the game. I'm not going to compare myself against the people that are farming literal mirrors. I've never even had a mirror. I've never had a percentage of a mirror. So why am I going to worry about it? That's about it. Later.
Wait a second. This enemy isn't smart. It isn't adapting. And it definitely isn't learning. You've been playing a ton of Arc Raiders, and I'm sure you and your friends have discussed how cool these AI Arc enemies are that everyone seems to be talking about, and how insane it is that Arc Raiders implemented real AI NPCs. NPCs that are actually changing how they play and are, quote-unquote, learning from the player base with every single match played. But here's the thing, that's actually not how it works, like at all. Arc Raiders feels like its enemies are learning from you. Take a look at these clips of standard Arc movement. A leaper jumping or a wasp walking back and forth while flying. These are both movements that these Arc enemies do without a player or mine on them. But players seem to think that leapers are learning to suicide bomb with a mine on it, or a wasp is purposefully rocking a player off it. But they're not. And that's exactly why the game design here works so well. Now, the first thing we need to address is, why do almost all Arc Raiders players think that the Arcs are real-time learning AI models, enemies that are learning how you play in real time and adapting to your every move? I think we first need to address that. And we all know that AI is such a buzzword these days. It's thrown around. People don't even fully understand it, and as soon as AI gets associated with something like a video game or anything really, but specifically in a video game, people start to assume everything that is not a human in the game must be AI. Now, the first reason that players think the Arcs are real-time learning AI models is that Embark Studios, the game's developer, actually did use AI and machine learning models to train certain aspects of the Arc enemies, mainly the movement. The second reason is that Arc enemies are actually just designed really, really well. And because the Arc enemies are designed so well, and there was some aspects of AI and machine learning used in the development of Arc Raiders, somehow the player base seems to have assumed that the Arc enemies are real-time learning AI machines. Destruction! Not quite. So first things first, let's kind of clear the air here. There seems to be a ton of confusion as to how, why, where AI exists in Arc Raiders, what exact aspects of AI were used in the making of Arc Raiders. Let's clarify that here. So, first things first, machine learning was used in the enemy locomotion and behavior training during the development of Arc Raiders, especially the multi-legged Arc enemies. Think Leaper, Queen. ML was used to train these models to move realistically and handle terrain dynamically. It isn't scripted animation, instead the movement behavior were trained using ML techniques before the game was released. This is new tech that is being used. However, once this training was completed, the resulting movement policy was integrated into the shipped game. The game itself does not retrain these models in real time. They are not being trained in real time as the game is going. Also, a big thing that has caught a lot of people's attention is the Steam disclosure. It states that procedural and AI tools were used to help with asset creation and content workflows, though the final art design was curated by actual people. Basically, AI-based tools were used to assist the iterative and procedural content creation during the development of the game, but these are really support systems of the development process, not actual gameplay elements players are interacting with directly. The third thing, there's also kind of a text-to-speech system that is using ML models to mimic voice actors. Basically, voice actors create a core data set, and they have ML models that are mimicking voice actors to kind of generate new AI-created voice lines. But that's a little bit separate, but that is a piece as well. But the bottom line is that from every source or example available, everything I can find, generative AI for visuals or live in-game learning adaptation is not used in Arc Raiders. And the amazing part is everyone seems to think it is. The key is the enemies actually do not adapt. They're not adapting, they're not changing. You do, as a player. Arc Raiders builds enemies that teach the player to learn. And that's good game design. And that really is the second reason why everyone thinks these arcs are AI super genius ever learning beings. You have the compounding effect.
Ne?
Čuješ, Marić mi treba, ali neću da vam dam pare, nemoj ni ti. Neka dođe gore ili...
Pa šta ja da radim to?
Ne, samo mu reci, ako ga ja ne čujem, do mene da vidimo na drva. Nešto mi treba, samo. Znaš, radi to. Jer on je mama koji se razumije, isto kao i ja.
Tamo ne može staviti pare i onda će ti on doći tamo iza kuće, ne boj se.
Neću staviti.
Stavi tu na pult.
Gdje?
Tu stavi. Na sto.
Evo ovdje. Ali, recimo da se čeka minut da dođe do mene. Hoćemo, dobro je.
Of AI being actually used in the development in some sense, and also the design being so well that players seem to think, wait a second, these Arc enemies could actually be real, live, learning NPCs. Not the case. Now, anytime a game feels punishing or reactive, players usually will say kind of the same thing. The NPCs are adapting to me. They seem to be changing how they are reacting based on what I do. But real learning AI, the kind that's kind of modeling player behavior and changing strategies in real time, it's very rare in video games on purpose. There's a reason for this. This kind of AI implementation isn't impossible with today's AI tech. However, it usually feels bad for the players. Even though the idea sounds good, right? Like, we can have a true learning AI that's going to constantly be dynamic and it's always changing how it behaves and the player has to adapt. It sounds fun, but in practice, not likely. A true real-time learning AI would feel unfair and unreadable as a player. There would be likely zero consistency in how the enemies are actually acting. They would constantly change their behavior and likely become unbeatable, let's be honest. If an enemy changes his behavior and you don't understand why, you can't learn from your mistakes. You only really feel cheated as a player. Arc Raiders does none of this. Enemies adapt, but in a clear way, with consistent rules, states, and escalation systems, and it's designed so well that the result is the feel of intelligence, without ever needing the AI to actually learn. Okay, so how do Arc enemies actually work? Arc enemies function under what we call state-based, this sort of loop system. You have idle and patrol, is kind of the base state of all arcs. Then they would move into an alert sense where you kind of see the yellow flashing. They're alerted. You've maybe shot, there's been you shoot the arc, you miss it, it was close, it's alerted. It's like, whoa, where did that shot come from? You see it turn, you notice it. And then let's say you hit it, it turns red and it's on the hunt. It knows where the bullet came from. It's coming for you and your position, right? Then it gets actually into combat where it's getting close enough to you and actually in combat. Let's say you hide from it, it'll go into a search mode. Unable to find you, it goes back to idle and patrol. And of course, the back to idle and patrol can kind of happen at any point in the loop. So maybe it gets alerted, it never actually kind of sees you in the alert state, and it goes back to idle and patrol. Even on a hunt, it could go back to idle and patrol, and so on. Now, each state has different movement speeds, posture, sound cues, and aggression levels. You as a player know, if you play not even that long, just a few rounds, you're going to start to realize how these arcs actually work, how they function. The states become readable by the player. You know when the arc is alerted, when it's hunting, when it's searching, and it's intentional in the game design. The enemy feels smart not because it's improvising, but the player can actually understand it in a way that makes it seem smart. And really, one of the smartest design choices in Arc Raiders is that the enemy perception is actually fuzzy. And it's fuzzy on purpose. And what I mean by that is they've designed these enemies in a way that they rely heavily on things like sound. They have delayed visual confirmation. And you'll notice they tend to investigate where you were, not where you are. If you start to kind of toy with the arcs a little bit and see how they act, first off, sound is a big thing. They will get attracted to sound a lot. And sound, of course, is sort of an area. It's not like an exact position, so they kind of start to move into areas based on sound. And you'll notice that they will kind of jump a little bit delayed. If you move from position A to B, and it usually will go to A first and then B. It's a little bit delayed. You will notice that. And they're not instantly snapping to your position, right? Your exact position. The uncertainty here is kind of creating that tension for the player. And the key is the question then the player is asking, did the enemy see me? No. You start to think, does the enemy think it saw me? And that ambiguity is now transferring to the player. The player isn't sure, and neither is the enemy. And the idea that the enemy is unsure, it makes it seem like it's thinking and reacting and strategizing. It starts to make it feel alive. Here is the most critical piece to the puzzle, and I will just state it plainly. Arc enemies do not adapt to your strategy as a player. At all, not even one bit. Arc enemies, they function on escalation, not adaptation. And they escalate based on things like time spent in combat, noise accumulation, how long you stay in one area. The longer you tend to push your luck as a player, the worse the situation usually becomes. More arcs start to show up, and the next thing you know, you're surrounded. And you may not even really do anything wrong. There are instances where one arc sees you, a rocketeer fires rockets at you, the sound is enough, more arcs swarm, you haven't fired a single shot, and you're dead. Happens all the time. So, if the arcs aren't actually learning, why does it feel like it is? The answer is actually quite easy. It's because you actually are as the player. As game designers, we know that players naturally fall into habits. They use similar escape routes, solve fights the same way. Arc Raiders doesn't counter those habits directly, it simply applies consistent consequences. Let me give a bit more of a concrete example as to what I mean here. So, think about the first time you successfully escaped an arc encounter. You found a route that worked in a specific area. Maybe you used a specific stairwell, a zip line, and it feels smart. You were able to get away from the arc, survive, and game continues. So the next time things go bad, you use it again. And maybe the second time you use it, it works. But maybe the third time you use it, another arc happens to overlap your position and attack. Or reinforcements happen to arrive. Maybe through a sound or something. And The AI didn't magically learn your escape route. You just used the same route enough for the situation to escalate to a point where you got caught. The patrols didn't change their logic, they simply overlapped in space and time, and it feels like the AI adapted, but really it was a situation that you created using the same route. You created this situation as a player. And it feels like the game noticed what you were doing, and the Ark followed your route because it knew you always go that way. But it didn't, and that's the illusion. Enemies don't respond to you, they respond to the situation that you create. You'll see in the clips that I was just showing there, the red line represents the escape route used multiple times. Green circles represent Ark patrol paths. Red X's on the patrol paths represent Ark positions on their patrol at the time of escape. Sound of your encounter and escape with one Ark may or may not trigger another Ark to join the fight, which could then keep the original Ark that was chasing you in the hunt even longer. They didn't learn your path, they simply collided with your path. Right place, right time. So, why is this better than true adaptive AI? Well, true adaptive AI feels like cheating. Enemies suddenly know more than they should, difficulty spikes suddenly, and players get no feedback. And they can't tell what they did wrong in a certain situation. That would not feel good as a player. You do not want to play a game where every time you lose, you don't know why. You can't learn, and you're not going to improve. And Ark Raiders does the complete opposite. Everything the Arks do is learnable. You understand their enemy states, you understand their escalation, clear triggers, and you can usually trace your deaths to decisions made. When you fail, you can usually point to why. You were in one area too long, you made too much noise, attracted too many Arks, whatever it may be. You should have disengaged. And what this does is this makes improvement possible simply through better judgment, better decisions, and the player starts to learn how to handle these situations better. Not the enemies, not the AI. So, no, Ark Raiders enemies don't learn how you play, but the beauty of it is they don't need to, because the real learning system is the player. The game teaches you when to engage, when to retreat. And that's what makes the enemies feel intelligent. Not because it's smarter than you, because you are thoughtful. That's not just good AI design, that's great game design. And that's why Ark Raiders is so popular right now. Also for a multitude of other reasons that we will discuss in a future video. If you enjoyed this kind of game design breakdown, consider liking, subscribing. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Oh wow.
Oh, look at that! A blood medallion. I think I've got something in here about those. Ah, yes. This will come in handy.
Andvaris. Hmm.
Let's see what we can do with it back at the console.
satchel is full. Feel my wrath! I've nowhere to keep that. Steel yourself!
Mukanian. Welcome to my channel.
Mukanian. Hello, Mukanian.
Face me!
Motherfucker.
Hello.
Hello.
Solid. Welcome to my channel. Hello.
I don't know about this.
Do you ever sleep, Snake?
Sometimes. Hello, Sully. Sometimes I do.
How are you?
Good.
Mukanian.
How about you, man?
Thanks for following.
Hello. Yeah, good. Bunch of junk. I do sleep. Couple of hours.
Feel my wrath.
I would say life is too short to sleep all the time. You're gonna sleep over your life.
You're always on for me, lol.
Yes and no.
That is very true.
Okay.
I am also fine.
Wait, aren't you from a UK? Was it? United Kingdom? Or did they mix you up with somebody else? With Pity Point maybe?
Nice to meet you.
No. Great. Let me check something real fast. Am I talking to AI again? No, it's not AI. Oh.
Oh.
Real person.
Real person.
Oh, that.
Well met.
Oh,
Solid howdy. Good morning. Yeah, I am real person.
well, I just tested it.
The best Half-Life 1
Think
mod
you are.
ever has just released. 27 years after Half-Life 1 did. A mod that manages to do unprecedented things that genuinely made my jaw drop on many occasions. And it does all that while telling an interesting story set outside of the Half-Life universe. So in this video we're going to be taking an in-depth look at this mod. I'll tell you what the story is about, show you all the reasons this mod is great outside of just the incredible looking graphics, analyze it on the process, and of course, review it. This will be a long one, so sit back,
Good
relax,
morning.
and let us take a look at Diffusion. Diffusion starts with an introduction to our character. We are James Smith, a 12-year-old who's currently passing through Utah on his way to do a nice little vacation for himself. We run out of gas already, and it just so happens to be right next to
Morning,
the
morning.
labs, leading us to Chapter 1, Utah Labs. That's
A lot of
created
AI
and to address the elephant in the room,
chatbots
this is Half-Life.
trying to peddle the
It's running
By the way, where are from?
a custom engine that is
Europe.
a replica of Mozart's Half-Life engine. Now, just
Europa.
Would be nice if your bot said who was talking to you.
a sequel to a
That's
Ghost
fine.
Uses actually, and it's one of the worst.
It's better this way, trust me. There you go. Isn't it more funny this way?
Destruction.
Running around in circles, stomping ground. Vamos. Um. Corsair vest. Interesting. I don't know. Okay. How is everybody's day been? It's kind of morning for me.
Are you from USA?
Europa. Europe.
Good, I am about to go to bed.
Oh god, Sully, please. Oh yeah, so you are from States, I see. Sully, good night. Thanks for dropping by. You shouldn't be staying up late.
Face me.
There you go. Everybody's dead. Evasion. Damn.
I am US citizen.
Mm-hmm. It's one, yeah. I kinda deduced. Like every time Amazy starts yawning, it means that probably it's super late. And he's like
Nice to meet you.
past the bed every time. Yeah, well met fellow traveler. Well, yawning.
He is an hour ahead of me.
It's kind of same. He is like even later than you. Come give a bear a hug.
Do you stream daily?
I can explain it. I work every day. I make bread for money, as I explained to a lot of people. I'm a baker, glorified baker. And this is my, fun time relaxation. It's non-profitable, and every like cent or whatever dollar is like recommended to go to charity. I don't have anything to do with like Twitch ads. They are pushed upon everyone. It is what it is. Twitch sometimes pays me like a percentage of like how much the ads they shove down the people's throat, which is fine. Whatever, do what you want. I don't care. I got like $10 for like ads. I don't care. I don't need them. I have like close to like $1,000 or €1,000. It's the same actually. Wage, which is considered pretty solid in my country. So streaming isn't really my source of income, and I don't want to go like a full streamer or whatever. Like most of the streamers from my country, like the medium-sized ones, earn maybe $300, $400, and it's a lot of work. Don't want to do that. Like I just want to, chat to people and hang out.
S.W.Frost.
I've no more room.
Was that a whisper? Tell me it's not a whisper. I did told you.
I did told you. Commercial.
Is it commercial? I can repeat myself, it's not a problem even. So, I'm a baker and I earn like solid wage in my country for 8 hours of work, not much of work. So, I have more time to play games and, you know, behave casually, I guess.
No challenge.
Oh, yes. Wow. So many loot.
Have a good stream, Snake. I'll catch you later.
Goodbye, Sally. Thanks for dropping by.
Alright, no problem.
Are you maybe in a business of like selling digital merchandise, like digital art, stuff like that? Is that your thing, Mr. Madam? Sir? Fellow? Buddy? Friend? Mana cost converted to life cost. Increase fire damage. Phew, I don't know about that. Okay, proceed further. The fuck? Ah. It is what it is.
Auxiliary herself probably stood right here. Oh, I wish I could have seen this at the time.
Nice. Okay.
Things I've ever played. But Diffusion obviously knew what to do with them. the insanely great graphics being the most obvious factor here. Better looking lighting, dynamic shadows, and the method of importing models from Black Mesa and other Source games makes for a visual masterpiece that makes this mod look as good as Black Mesa itself in many cases. There is no doubt that Sash 3D didn't also help with a lot more technical things as well though, which we'll get to later. Let's go back to the start though, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Attempting to find a way out of this inconvenient situation, a security guard allows us to enter a parking lot to make a phone call. But before we get to make that call, an armed guard goes for a cheap shot and knocks us out with a kick. We get to listen to two soldiers discussing what to do with us. They decide to spare us given that we don't seem to work for the company. We then become witness to what seems to be a military invasion of this lab. We have to sneak past the soldiers and get the keys of the security guard, at which point we get to listen to this awesome soundtrack. As much as I would love to praise each new song that gets played, I'm just gonna state right now that this game's entire soundtrack is incredible. It's entirely custom made for this mod and perfectly fits into the vibe it's trying to give off. Sneaking past the soldiers, we make our way into the facility. It seems we were knocked out for at least an hour. We find a computer with notes from the military. Computers like these will be found throughout the mod and are used to tell some extra lore, similar to Fallout's terminals. Reading this military note, we find out that their task is to eliminate everyone in this facility and to capture and detain A. Rich, whose full name is Mr. Andrew Rich. He will be quite an important character. Venturing deeper, it seems this facility is abandoned. We catch glimpses of scientists fleeing and even a few dead bodies here and there. There are also these crystals, red and blue. A note about the blue crystals reveals that they have healing properties. A scientist wearing one as an amulet cured their migraines with it. These beginning areas serve as an introduction to the world of diffusion. Outside of a few simple puzzles, there isn't a lot of gameplay yet, quite similar to how Half-Life games usually start. Sneaking further into the facility, we catch our first real glimpse of cutscenes. Now, if this was a regular Half-Life mod set in the Half-Life universe, I may have voiced some criticism, but given that this is completely its own thing, there's absolutely nothing to comment on here. In general, these cutscenes fit in perfectly. They give off a heavy PlayStation 2 game vibe. It's here that we get our first hint on what's going on. A person at the facility requested the help of security forces, but due to a direct order from Mr. Rich, they are forced to stay at Mega City in the primary labs. In one sector of the lab we find a suit, noted by a scientist named Nakayama to be a military version of a previous suit project, and that she wasn't in favor of creating it in the first place. She instead wanted to use the crystals to cure, well, everything. But Mr. Rich wanted to divert resources to this project. Anyone wearing it will be practically unstoppable. And that's likely Andrew Rich. Well, turns out that isn't true, because we managed to steal it for us. This is where the fun begins. Except for one minor inconvenience. Nakayama's note mentioned the suit to not be properly calibrated, which caused electric shocks to happen in random intervals. These flash the HUD and cause us to take damage occasionally. Let me remind you, this is a Half-Life 1 mod. I feel like repeating this from time to time because this genuinely looks and feels like a Half-Life 2 mod, when it isn't. After equipping our first weapon, a rather sick looking knife, we find a scientist in a vent. He tells us to find Nakayama, that she has access to most of the lab and can help us get out of it. We also take out our first soldier. You may notice a health bar above this NPC. I didn't enjoy these too much and so I simply disabled them in the settings, but it's nice to have the option. We make our first real contact with Alice Nakayama. Unfortunately, as the release of this video, her and most other voices in Diffusion are made with AI. It's not even an AI filter, it's straight up text-to-speech AI. Good news is that an update is being worked on right now to replace every single AI voice with a real one, which I can't wait for. Now, outside of even moral reasons, which is my personal main motivator for why AI should never be used in the making of art, as I deem it inherently anti-art, it also just so happens to sound like absolute shit.
Alright, now let's meet in my lab and I'll share some more info.
It depends on the character and the voice lines. Sometimes it sounds fine, but most times it's like you're listening to the Google Translator voice. It makes it very hard to listen to these lines. If you plan on playing this mod, I heavily recommend waiting for the Real Voices patch that will hopefully release sooner than later. It's moments like these that make me miss a shitty mic, fake accent voice acting from early Half-Life mods. I prefer those over AI any day. Anyways, Alice Nakayama explains a bit of what's going on to her understanding, which is that Mr. Andrew Rich, the director, didn't come to an agreement with the government over the suit project. The government wanted a suit used for military operations, but the... sorry, wait. The US military thought it was too dangerous and wanted to stop development. I'm sorry, that's a good one, man. Good one. That's absolutely what the US is known for. Okay, well, anyways. Mr. Rich opposed this and hired more security and continued the development, and here we are. According to her, if the second director, Dr. Michael Bennett, was still here, none of this would have happened. But he disappeared while exploring a new dimension, which people suspect Rich played a part in. She now wants us to meet her in her lab. since even though she doesn't know us, she believes we are one of the good guys, and that since there's no security here, we are the only person besides herself that can shoot. On our way there, we come across some interesting things. We find this new enemy, obviously based on the Vortigaunt, but these are actually dwellers. They come from the red dimension, where the red crystals are from. This creature is at least 250 years old. This also isn't the last time we will deal with them. We receive some more weapons, and the weapons in this mod are insanely fun to use. We'll end up receiving a ton of weapons. And while this mod could have slimmed down on them, I'm glad it didn't. Having this amount of variety was very fun. For now we get the KSG shotgun, a cool pistol, and the MP5. It really can't be overstated how fun this mod is, which it achieves by constantly innovating the gameplay. We get this remote control turret section which I wouldn't know how to do in the Source engine, let alone Gold Source, a stationary sniper we get to use, and a lot of simple puzzles. Stuff to keep you interested. Jiggling the keys in front of your face, which is kinda just what gameplay is if you really think about it, and this mod achieves just that. We eventually managed to reach Nakayama, and damn, it's a high quality model. Look at those vans. It is funny how insanely good her model looks compared to the pretty much regular Half-Life 1 scientist. She fixes our suits so we no longer get electrocuted, and adds a dash feature. I was dumb enough to constantly forget that I even have this ability, but in reality this is actually a huge game changer. This makes combat a lot more interesting and adds a huge learning curve to it. Mastering this is not only good for making combat all the more rewarding if you put in the effort, but it also has huge speedrun capabilities. Most enemies now throw grenades, encouraging you to use a dash. And by the end of the mod, there will be sections that require you to use dashing and platforming. A really fun and cleverly implemented feature. The goal now is to reach a teleporter to get to the red dimension as a means of escaping the military occupation. Once in the red dimension, we can teleport back to Earth at a more secure spot. We split up with Alice again and move through the Botanic sector. This is where we meet Dr. Watkins, who has a keycard we require to move further. But he is only willing to give it to us in exchange for a flower? Well, we have no choice but to go and get it. On our way there, we find a dweller in a lab, with notes about how they're working on a translation system to communicate with it. And best thing is that we are able to open a portal to the red dimension to free it, which causes it to leave a note behind for us. Teleport, savior, home, happy, thank you, gift, health. It's so cute. And yeah, it really did leave us a gift. Not only did we, unbeknownst to the player at this point, gain some positive karma, collecting this battery will give us a permanent 20 max HP increase. An upgrade you can find a few times throughout the game. In case you're wondering about how health works, by the way, this mod features somewhat quick regeneration, which also depends on the difficulty you play at. The footage in this video is mostly on easy. There are no medkits you have to scavenge for. This removes the survival aspect a bit, which I think serves this mod well as it allows for a higher focus on combat. With dashing being added to this suit along another ability that we'll get to later, this was a great choice and makes this experience a lot more fun. With the Dweller Freak, we do a really fun hacking puzzle that involves you finding the correct square to open a door, which is where we find the Barrett Sniper. And man, as much as I want to throw an MLG at it right now, I sadly won't. Because even though it's accurate, does high damage, looks peak and is animated perfectly, the sound is... man, it's completely missing that initial explosive sound. Listen to how it sounds when I overlay the old school CSGO ARP sound. Much better, right? We then find the flower. Turns out that by using a mix of the red and blue crystal, this flower has become immortal. It didn't decay even a bit over months, and that is without watering it. I get why Watkins wanted this flower now. His old ass needs this technology. Right before arriving at the teleport station, Alice has two pieces of bad news for us. For one, the soldiers also made it to the red dimension. Secondly,
So, at the eve of the end, the Din of Vatzoatl has finally come for me. I'm not here for you, fool! I can't yet. Survival requires... I need more time. A minor setback. This ends now. Vatsuatl. Unexpected. But not critical. I plan for every contingency. Fatal ambition. This is not over yet. There is no escape. Now you're within my grasp. No! Do not fail me. Not now. How could this?
Your people cannot be saved. History is already written. You can stay here and die, or come with us and help save the future.
The legacy of the Val must be protected. I do know of a way to contain the beast.
Spoils of war.
Let's just start talking then. My friend here isn't exactly the peacemaking type.
If there is an agent,
So will you help us?
I support. I will come to.
It's settled then.
I don't trust you, but you do have my respect. We will see about it.
What is happening?
It begins.
What can we do? How to get us through the gate?
Quickly.
How can I help? Well, he wasn't the worst captor I've ever. At least it appears he is on. But you shouldn't forget who he is. There is something eerily cold.
History says he was poor.
True enough. I believe he will aid you, so long as your goals align with his. I'm just... I briefly saw... Well, let's just say I now
It
understand.
must have been.
It was unreal. But it all happens. Perhaps that was a blessing. Bye.
Utsal. My people. They're all long dead. It's one thing to... I can't change their fate. But the Val are not entirely gone. Alva and her Val ancestry is proof of that. I will do for that to happen. We need the weapon. We must travel to the archipelago of Karui called Namakanui. If the pieces still
Čini mi
exist,
se ono ulazilo
that is
da
what
je
they will
mali
find.
došao.
Ne.
We sought immortality, both in flesh and in machinery. We sought understanding.
Ne, nisi imaš koji kod tebe.
Da.
Story of the
Ja
beast.
sam dva tamo i tamo. Ne, nešto
Returning the
bježi
Curiosity's
lan.
inspired move.
Ubijalo
The
se.
foremost expert on beast that ever lived. He is exactly the man we need. I doubt we can trust him in a broader sense, but for the moment, our goals are aligned. He wishes to contain the beast, and so do we. If he thinks we should travel south to Namakanui, then so
Bravo
we
što
shall.
za kož.
This weapon of the precursors, it may just be our best hope.
Ja uvijek rukavice koristim.
Ne mogu ja da koristim rukavice na poslu.
Nama je dobro to, nego da ove poslove,
To je druga stvar.
Doriani claims it is in pieces.
Nama je koža mek.
Stalno radim sa ovom, kako se zove, sa začinima i sa uljem, da su mi ruke ili masne ili brašnjave. I onda ih perem, a tamo je preladno i onda koža puca od toga.
Moraš se negovat.
How can I help?
Eto, jedino kad dođem kući mogu to raditi.
Until next time.
Misliš samo neku kremu, neće ti je nikom...
A džaba ne mogu to da radim dok se na poslu.
Da. Ali ne...
Kad dođem kući i okupam se, onda mogu slanjiti to.
Neku kremu da namažeš prije posla ti je život.
Pa evo sad se namazam.
Jedno prije posla, nego se ćeš početi.
To nije moguće.
Moguće nekada.
Ja ti kažem, takav posao radim da moram stalno ruke da perem od svega. Ako radim sa brašnom, moram da perem ruke od ulja, a moram sipat ulje u kante tamo. Koje stvarno ne može.
How can I help? Someone.
Vidim da Sima nema za kafu.
Farewell. Hey,
I can't pretend, I promise you.
Kako ćemo što raditi, bit će zanimljivo. Večeras radimo, danas radimo drugu, pa sutra radimo prvu, pa smo kao slobodni par dana. Fantazija.
Tako ti je, malo godina.
Fancy this one.
Remeti jedan dan.
Enjoy.
Nije strašno.
Pa dobro, to je zato što sutra, ja mislim, ne bi trebalo da ima druga smena. Evo će nas sve zbučkat u prvu i onda ćemo samo ono čistit pogon. To ti to.
Aj dobro, mora se čisti, moramo svi. To je hrana.
Da, znam.
To je hrana, dođe ona inspekcija ako nije. Radio si klanicu. Onu klanicu kad nema Riori su dolaze Amerikanci. Znaš ti kući. Kad dođu Amerikanci, to se riba 2 dana, čovječe.
Riba se zato što mora da izgleda dobro za izvoz. To se riba.
Got a certain charm, that one.
Ne znam, ali će se kažem ti ne zna kad će doći. Malo da pa sad.
If you hear a click, duck.
Doći. Malo žiosno bude začešćena, ali brže na
Yes.
nego li na električni. I šerpa se grije, to samo odjela.
We have a deal. Stay wary. Don't want to start a fight.
hey,
Nešto je tiho,
it's a lot. The Kaldurans.
Doriani has one piece of an ancient weapon that can control corruption. The other 3 pieces lie somewhere in the countless islands of the Karui archipelago. But their current leader is distrustful of outsiders. He would never give us passage. Our only path forward lies through Kingsmarch. Perhaps getting too old to sleep in the back.
Se telefon ugasio bio. Pa možda je kvar u ono telekomunikacijama, tko zna. Ćeš jadan za maj.
This has been authorized by. Oh, accepted. There is. I understand. It's always good to meet you. What is it you want?
What do you do here? I've never seen a village.
Well, those Kalgurans here on Rayclast are in various guilds. Danik is in the wife's the only one still carrying on. On an unrelated note, this there are. So the wife says I'm the grand question. Oh, house, but in the end, they did not survive, and they lost the Tristan. Oh, my Gwen.
I won't say.
What are you interested in? Is this the friend you mentioned?
This is my contact, Rog, and it just
We need a skill.
I'll set up an account.
I suppose it's time we said farewell for now. I'm off to study at
Jesam,
home.
ne?
Do be careful out there.
Sometime.
Nisam još. Tu sam doručkao skoro. Ne mi slegne toplo. Se bučkam tu.
The name, welcome
That's
to our-
right.
Just down before you see that kind
What's the
of
call?
local island with the car room. If anyone can get you there, it's
I'll do what I can.
if you can clear that. I'm got enough best stuff. Don't take a lost. Who knows? Bugger off.
No.
None of your business. It's quite. Hey-o. I used to believe a whole load of we do the word. It really
So
is.
you came.
Yeah.
There is
Quite the situation.
Rayclast.
Oh, water, the big or whatever else. Till next time.
Yes?
I'm sorry to hear.
I rather died of. He left, but when he'd both, you never. But I could tell.
you didn't
I
get-
asked what happened. He looked at me. He was look. He said under his. I heard he held it. All very strange. He helped me with my self-confidence. Well, he got me.
I'm
blind.
getting the
Yes. Since then, for some reason, people have run people awfully. All the best.
I've been away.
You're most
If I
welcome,
survive.
and it's all settled. Ah, a fellow blacksmith.
I've been away from the flame too long. I could use it.
You're most welcome at my forge any time. If you're around long enough, I'll even teach you the art of
If I
runes.
survive the coming days.
Then it's all settled. Well, this little...
reminds
To be fair, we did have... The king commissioned this port for trade after we'd been operating it as an... We ourselves, very...
The Val.
Your guess is as good as mine.
What
King's
happened?
That's why we came in. The most powerful artifact in our known tales was brought
If
to us.
Ogum had...
My thoughts
Trust
exactly.
me, the hour is all...
One day... We've had 20 years on Rayclast, and those gems you use continue. Clearly, they grant you mystical...
Are you sure?
Believe me, I've tried. We have our own methods of mystical power, to be fair, but your gems remain an enigma. Somehow, I suspect the power is actually inside you. And the runes
The
are now
Ezamites-
all that and... Let's equip you for the journey.
Jer bio miran, vidite kad se ja sam vodio. Bio miran.
Da, jest. Bio.
Nije se
Pa malo ga plaše psi, ali plašili su ga, tako reći.
Jes, Vesna kaže, nije se zna da ima toliko kelova kroz ulicu.
Kako koji zale, tako se on, ono, cimne.
A prije bio, znaš. Sila. Fin, zdravo. Zdravo, ja. Yes.
This is my shop, Rog's Rarities.
A kako se Ivana boje? Ona kad ona puci bježi u šupu.
To što se on rastrči.
Pa ne, pa ne. Pa nešto kaže, tako je zdravo.
What a story.
Now I'm just who knows.
Nije gleda
Tell 'em, Moana.
jedrije.
They don't talk now first, then. It must be. This sort of custom is not too different from Karui oral traditions. But it's a tricky situation. I am no longer part of my tribe, so I have no family to immortalize the song. Tujin suggested that we could be family, but he was drunk.
Minja vodu češće. Sve to utiče.
I bet to leave
Možeš ti
it.
stoku
At the most, it was set to
da
us.
postaviti, a da tražiš od nje
That's just how I
da je
was.
zdrava pod broj 1.
Luckily for me, it was the main part.
Da
The
je
truth,
zdrava, da
I
je
earned their
napredna, da je
loyalty by my
kvalitetno
choice.
meso.
The council, it's the best
Mlijeko
situation.
da posesti i tako.
My people's until when I was that I thought other Karui like me have spread out across Rayclass in search of me. The elders
Posveti
call
par,
us
vidi
Karui.
drži li?
They think that we have rejected the way,
So
that
to je
we
pokrio.
dishonor our families.
Do you
Yes.
take that to heart?
Not really. At least not anymore. Now, when I was a young girl, I visited the halls of
Tu se neći.
my ancestors told me that the way was meant to empower us, not to control us. So who am I dishonoring by seeking my truth? It's a debate that I'm tired of having. But either way, it has separated me from my family, and I must live with that.
Jer ovaj narod prevaranski moj. Znaš sad.
Da.
Ali moraš sa svakim biti dobar, a sa nikim iskreno baš ono. A dobar sa svakim moraš. Ako je neko pukara...
Pa ne mora nikoga da lažem, ali ono što mislim da ne treba da podelim, neću reći nikom, hvala.
Da.
I don't know what to make of it. Well, but some I've noticed.
Perhaps this can.
And just like I will.
Watch your step, eh? Slip overboard and I'm cunning.
Well,
I won't mess around with you. My family wasn't always. I was, but I never went too far. I couldn't leave my family. Well, hey.
The boss.
That's right. Makoru's the boss. But more, he showed up.
Leading an entire.
But she might have. Think about it. When the Celt my parents
Did you?
well, look, late at night, all I know, that doesn't. We should at least hear new ideas. All good.
Sreća. Sve se to čuje sada.
Show me what you're made of.
Nema para! Nema para! Hoćeš samo pare! Pare Miško! Znaš što je zbori onaj? Pare Miško pa me gazi traktor. Ali što će? Bravo, Marko. Što će ti tata pare?
Science won't save you!
The server now has to be rebooted to be able to use the teleporter again. Being the chat we are, we do that of course, which is then followed by a holdout section as the teleporter charges up. Half-Life 2 Nova Prospect style. This includes us being able to equip and place turrets and pick them up again. This is wizardry. We get introduced to assassins here. They behave the same as the ones from regular Half-Life 1. Once the teleporter is charged, we finish chapter 1 and enter chapter 2. Red Dimension. Creative naming once again. Chapter 1 as a whole would already place it as one of the best Half-Life 1 mods to ever exist. And yet, this is only chapter 1 of 5. Chapter 1 being the least impressive one by far. And yet I'd still give it a 9.5 out of 10. My only tiny critique would be that signage could be improved at times, especially with the lots of running back and forth we do. You can get lost pretty easily. There were also a lot of times where you have this huge path in front of you, and the correct path was actually a small vent hidden in a random corner of it. I get that vents are a level designer's dream to connect different environments, but it felt slightly overused here. But this is me nitpicking. Chapter 1 is peak, and it only gets better from here. It was fun, the perfect length, and introduced the story nicely. Chapter 2 once again knocks it out the park with its visuals. Our goal this time is comparable to Half-Life 2 Episode 2. We receive a transmission from Will Spencer, a scientist sitting in the teleportation chamber of this dimension. Our goal is to get to him so we can teleport back to Earth at a secure spot. We receive a side goal as well. We see scientist Tony Darlow in danger, closed in by soldiers, meaning we have to rescue him. Chapter 2 itself is similar to Chapter 1 in length, and unfortunately about a third of it is spent inside labs very similar to Chapter 1. These labs are great, and this is again a nitpick. But it would have been cool to have more elements that differentiate these labs from the regular ones. And this AI slot poster isn't helping that. Don't worry, they plan on replacing this as well. We end up saving Tony Darlow. Alice arrives as well. Alice and Tony Darlow take the tunnels that lead directly to the teleportation chamber. And we are tasked with going another path to divert attention away from them. A very dumb reason. I mean, why not just go along with them and protect them when needed? It's fun to see what methods game designers come up with to separate the player from the companions, and I totally get it. Sometimes those reasons just have to be a bit dumb. On a small optional side expedition, we receive a new suit upgrade, the Electro Blast. This attack is similar to the one of Hound Eyes in Half-Life 1, and does a huge amount of damage, enough to kill any human enemy immediately. We finally make it outside, and this is where we get to perhaps the most interesting, one-of-a-kind segments for a Half-Life 1 mod ever. The soldiers have disabled 3 transmission towers, meaning we have to go enable them again. Since they are pretty far away from each other, we receive a vehicle. We are driving freely with car physics in Half-Life 1. Sash 3D is straight up crack. This was a huge amount of fun, and driving through the cliffs of this planet had me forgetting what game I'm playing. It's so good. We receive more weapons here optionally, consisting of a rocket launcher that will be useful in just a bit, and the G38C. We also received a few other weapons up until this point. We got this shotgun that is super fun to use and ported straight from Left 4 Dead from all I can tell. This custom gun called Kyer MRC, the 6.7, the Deagle, Satchel, mines, grenades, a crossbow was received shortly afterwards as well, and we will receive more in the coming chapters. If you thought a car was crazy, on the way to the final transmission tower we get to ride a jet ski. Seriously, how? For a bit of a switch up, we get another optional, really nice character interaction here. We meet Catherine, a friend of Alice as she notes. She's simply sitting here, having arrived with her own jet ski, waiting out the military invasion while enjoying the view. It's heartwarming. When trying to interact with her bestie, since the pink one is the cooler one objectively, she will actually comment and say,
"Do you really need my scooter that bad?"
Adding interactions like these makes our world come to life. And just to ensure this mod's spot number 1, Alice will comment on you meeting Catherine, saying that she's glad to see she's well. Absolute cinema. We find notes about the military talking about the player, calling us the suit guy. One thing that is becoming somewhat annoying at this point is the lack of enemy variety. Up to this point, we only have regular soldiers and assassins. That's it. Thankfully, this is about to change. But it's another minor nitpick worth mentioning since there are basically no negatives about this mod otherwise. As mentioned, this gets
Daj, mali kaš. Evo ti uras, nek ti se ugri. To je na pola sata, dok ja varu, pa ćemo ono da odbacimo. Samo da odbacimo, da ga zonu. Nema neće o mene, ja mu daru 40.000, alo. Neće o mene zema.
Whatever.
broken up here since we fight a helicopter. A fun little boss fight. We then reach the labs again. Towers all enabled, but the basement generator has to be restarted. They sent a scientist called Harlan down there, but he never returned. Going down there ourselves, we find Harlan's dead body. And although we never meet him alive, it turns out he's a key player in this story. In a note next to him, he wrote about how he opposed Mr. Rich's plans. And we find out about a new project. Project Fusion. Harlan was an important scientist who had created different eras of suits, but denied any further help on this project, noting that Bennett, the scientist we mentioned earlier who disappeared, never wanted this. He also spoke to Nakayama, who helped make the military suit, and found out she didn't actually want to make it, and that she's just playing along. Noting that it's smart, Harlan himself wasn't quite as smart. He called out Rich directly, and he also called the investors to tell them what's happening. Rest in peace, Harlan, you did good, and this won't be the last time we hear of his direct involvement in this story. So to make it clear, there's the military suit which we are wearing, which already makes us very OP, and then there's Project Fusion, another suit project that is seemingly even more powerful. We will learn about it as the story progresses. We are also presented a new threat, the one that likely killed Harlan. We hear loud footsteps as the screen shakes. Shortly afterwards, we meet a mech. How is this Half-Life 1? This mech makes for a great boss fight. This entire room is laid out perfectly for this battle. And best of all, if you opened the portal for the Dweller in the beginning, it will come back at this moment and will cut the HP of this boss in half. Doing good deeds does pay out. Once we beat the mech, we return to the teleportation chamber. Most people were already teleported away to safety. By the way, listen to the AI slop of Will Spencer because holy shit does it suck.
I thought I will express my gratitude in person. You are truly the savior of our lives.
Please just record your voice lines on a mic in your room. I don't care how awful it sounds, it's better than this soulless garbage.
I prefer quality like this, genuinely.
Alice gives us an upgrade to our Electroblast, so that we can now do 2 of them. And just before Alice and the player are about to teleport away as the last people to do so, Mr. Andrew Rich arrives with a few of his armed guards. He declares that he's in charge now since Bennett is gone, and will force Alice to work on the fusion project despite Bennett's will. This is still better than most modern work environments somehow. To take care of us, Mr. Rich sends us to a battle we have no chance of winning. The one where Michael Bennett was sent as well, likely also by Mr. Rich, the Blue Dimension. Chapter 3 begins, Blue Dimension. Creative naming as per... Whoa. I am truly still speechless as to what I'm seeing here. This is one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed in Half-Life modding as a whole. Forget Half-Life 1. And would you believe me when I say that this isn't even the most beautiful thing this mod has to offer? Chapter 3 starts with us trapped in what seems to be a prison cart of sorts, escorted by robot soldiers. Fun fact, these are the robot grunts seen in the German version of Half-Life 1, replacing the human grunts. German censorship used to be very dumb in Half-Life 1. Here they got repurposed, which is great. We also hear an unknown voice talking to us over the suit radio. Even though they don't know us, they assume we must be with the science team, since we wouldn't have gotten here otherwise. Here they got repurposed, which plays robot soldiers. Fun fact, these are the robot grunts seen in the German version of Half-Life 1, replacing the human grunts. German censorship used to be very dumb in Half-Life 1. Here they got repurposed, which is great. We also hear an unknown voice talking to us over the suit radio. Even though they don't know us, they assume we must be with the science team, since we wouldn't have gotten here otherwise. We need to reach this person, but we are now in the middle of the city and trapped in a futuristic prison. The voice explained that these are also dwellers, just blue. They act as the slaves of the robots. Thankfully, this person has a translation device for the dwellers, and with this, the guard dweller lets us escape, which is also how we get some of our weapons back. The Deagle and the Kyer MRC rifle. This mod uses this chapter as a full weapon reset, which is for good themeless platforming. Lots of jumping and climbing along ledges. And in terms of combat, the mod addresses the lack of enemy variety here. The robot soldiers come in 3 different varieties, all of which have unique abilities. On top of this, there are also drones that fire at you. And we get this beast in the sky following and shooting at us. This is also where we get our next weapon, a laser gun that the enemy also has, and it fires energy balls. Energy balls in a Half-Life 1 mod. Seriously, how? And for even more variety, there's then a mini-boss, a bright red robot which you defeat similarly to the Ender Dragon, by destroying the pillars that make it immortal. A really fun addition. And also an introduction to this boss fight method, which will become relevant later on. Throughout this section there's a voice that talks to us again and again, a feminine AI voice. Like actual AI, supposed to be AI voice.
How are you still alive?
It's not quite as obvious given that every voice sounds like that in this mod. It keeps talking down to us, that we should head back, that we should give up. GLaDOS stuff basically. Speaking of Portal, please feast your eyes on this. This mod features moving portals. And they are not just set in a wall. You can look behind them and there's nothing. This is a Half-Life 1 mod. And these images aren't static either. If there's an enemy standing behind the portal, you will see it. This is magic. The combination of enemies, these portals mixed in with the platforming make this the best chapter yet by far. And to think that this is all one mod. This chapter could have been a totally separate experience, and again, it would have been one of the best Half-Life 1 mods to exist ever. Outside of just platforming, we also get some great puzzles. Specifically one in this room. We have to reroute a signal to open a door or something. Basically, we walk into this room that features a portal that shrinks us and places us into this pyramid on the table. You can actually see the huge version of yourself in the portal. This puzzle was actually really well made. The concept is simple enough to understand immediately, and then it's just about the fun of figuring out the correct combination of pillars. It's my favorite puzzle of the mod actually. It's at this section where we get to choose if we want to kill dwellers or not. There's an achievement if you don't. In this case, you're able to lure it into a storage container and lock it in there, which I recommend everyone doing. They're the victims in this world after all. After a long and fun adventure in this chapter, we eventually meet the person that has been talking to us using the suit radio. It's Dr. Mike Bennett. He's alive, and he's wearing a WhatsApp suit, just like my profile picture is. He has built up a small lab here and is hanging out with his dweller friend John. Interestingly enough, there's a time skip here that implies that we explained everything that happened to Bennett here, meaning our character actually is able to talk canonically. Bennett wants to help us in freeing Alice, and we don't have much time. But before this, he finally reveals who the AI voice is that we've been hearing. It's an AI built by the dweller. That was meant to help the society, but it ended up creating a robot army and enslaving them instead. I wonder what society is possibly dumb enough to make a reckless mistake like that. Our goal is now to defeat the AI. A large floating triangular bipyramid that fires lasers at us and spawns types of robots we haven't even fought before. A great 3-stage boss fight. Also the looks. How is this Half-Life 1? Using all the weapons we've collected thus far, which includes a new alien sniper, we defeat the AI. All the robots died with her, and the dwellers will continue their life without an AI for now, and will eventually make a new safer one, as Bennett explains to us using the dweller translation device he made. Bennett decides to keep a small piece of the AI though. He gives her the name Kara. He has removed the virus that caused her to become evil, and made her less powerful overall. She genuinely seems shocked and sad that she ended up enslaving the dwellers, and says that she's sorry. The dwellers want her destroyed, to which he simply says,
"In that case, I will accept my fate.
Oh no. It's a robot, so we know what she's saying is genuine. And only because it was the virus that made her evil, I have to say, I do love the Kara we get from this point forward. The remorseful, curious about life Kara. We teleport back to Earth, at a more secure location. The plan now is to go to the Crystal Tech HQ in Mega City, stop Project Fusion, and we also finally learn exactly what Project Fusion is. It's an improved suit that makes you practically immortal. The mod fails to state here that this isn't just some kind of Brian Johnson stop aging thing. It's talking about being immortal from all sources of harm. The wearer of the Fusion Project suit cannot be killed. And this in the hands of Mr. Rich spells trouble, to say the least. Bennett also notes that the red crystals are suspected to cause brain damage, which probably also affected Mr. Rich to a certain degree. The last thing Bennett tells us is that crystal mixes can be used to recharge our alien weapons from the Blue Dimension, that these will be plentiful at the HQ as well. And with that, we fly to Mega City and enter Chapter 4, Mega City. Creative, I'm gonna be quick because I really wanna get to visuals. Our goal here is to reach the Crystal Tech HQ, and for that we have to reach a parking lot where we'll find Bennett's car. But now, look at this. This is the peak of what Half-Life 1 can do. There will never be anything that looks more impressive. I'm pretty confident in saying that. We're glad to be proven wrong, but no. Look at the composition of colors, the details. You can see cars driving, civilians walking. Every single window has an interior, which are done using parallax 2D textures, meaning these rooms aren't even real. A method used in games like Spider-Man for the PS4. This saves massively on resources as well. It also does such a great job of introducing us to how large this city is. You feel so small. The city feels infinitely large, the start of a new adventure. And you also get to see the Crystal Tech HQ, towering above all other skyscrapers and thus immediately marking your goal, similar to how Half-Life 2 does it with the Citadel. I could stand here and look at this for hours if I'm being honest, but also just going forward, look at these environments. Doesn't this look like Mirror's Edge if anything? They look like they're out of an Unreal Engine 4 game, back when that used to mean something. And I'm not talking about specific hand-picked angles. Pretty much at all times you get environments that approach photorealism. And not just that, they also look pretty. Look at this parking lot. The visuals here are absolutely astonishing. Now for the gameplay. At the start we get the chance to enter an optional bar, and it's so well made. The only unfortunate thing here being that you can't chat with most NPCs here. You do however get to play a functioning drum and sing into the microphone.
Oh, thank you very much.
You can also order drinks and catch a bit of a buzz that lasts for like 5 minutes. It's so peak.
Fascinating behavior. Can I have some of that too? No, Connor. This won't work for you.
This chapter transported this mod to my second favorite one of all time. Easily. Nothing will ever beat Underhill though. Sorry. Arriving at the car, Mike Bennett goes full gas and manages to correctly guess that the car's trapped and that this is an ambush. Unfortunately, the enemy variety goes down in this chapter again. But it won't just be regular soldiers, don't worry. Plan B turns out to be train surfing, which brings us close to the HQ. What a peak concept for a Half-Life 1 mod. And again, look at these environments. For now we must fight our way out of the underground, for which there are some new enemies we have to face. The assassins are back with new attacks, like smoke grenades, and being able to shock you similar to how your suit used to do on its own. And there are drones that attack you. Eventually we are stuck on yet another roof. We can't go back on the street since, well, we would kinda stand out with a robot suit and like 50 weapons on our back. The HQ is standing on the other side of the street. Bennett has the idea to use the crane to get over there. But how do we do that, you may ask? Well, we go to a hardware store situated at this level and buy a drone. And just when you thought this mod could possibly run out of new mechanics and cool moments, we now receive this drone that we can either have us follow automatically and provide firepower, or you can control it to get to otherwise inaccessible areas. This entire area is detailed this way because you can actually fly anywhere with this drone. It's so peak. Pushing a button on a crane that definitely doesn't exist on real cranes, we managed to bridge the gap and are now in the Crystal Tech HQ, closer to stopping Project Fusion than ever before. And just when we enter, we pick up Alice Nakayama's radio. She managed to escape Andrew Rich, but she's still stuck at the tower, and soldiers are out to kill her. Entering the Crystal Tech HQ, we enter Chapter 5, Crystal Tech HQ. Chapter 5 starts with Mr. Rich asking us to simply give up. This will of course result in a game over if you actually oblige. As any base chat would do, we fight against the Rich and take out every soldier in this room. This final chapter is a culmination of everything we've been through before. There's platforming where we have to use dashing. We fight against soldiers, drones, assassins and mechs. We use the drone in puzzles. It's a ton of fun. The main goal now is to get to the main server to hopefully delete Project Fusion and stop any progress. Scaling up the tower, it starts raining at one point and oh my god. If you're a rain lover like me, You will find this to be just as peak as I do. Also check out this room we get to later. My god. This is a visual made in Half-Life 1 by the way, a 27-year-old game. We eventually make it to Mr. Rich's office. His computer should have access to the main server. Once we hack into it, Project Fusion is nowhere to be found. It has been moved to another location. The curtains lift up behind us and it's him, Andrew Rich. He offers a position in his plans. We simply have to come to his office and he'll explain everything. We actually get to choose what to do here. Go for the power the suit offers or continue the fight. The game has the potential to end here. Going into Rich's office, it turns out to be a trap. Who could have thought? With a quick electrical shock, we are knocked out and wake up in a teleportation chamber. To get rid of us, he teleports us into the white dimension, one not yet mentioned. Red crystals are found here. It's snowed, cold, and we get to see a black hole. Such a stunning visual. It's also crazy to think that the development for this mod started before we got the first image of a black hole that even confirms that they look like that. We pass out and a white dweller comes and consumes our body, making for ending 1 of this mod, the bad ending. If we do the right thing and decline the offer, we find 2 laptops that tell us the rest of Harlan's story. Mr. Rich lied to the government about wanting funding for a military suit, and he instead made Project Fusion. Harlan knew that Project Fusion could defeat the entire army, again noting that Bennett was right. Mr. Rich was ready to risk the entirety of Crystal Tech HQ being killed by the army, as it did happen in the beginning of this mod, in order to have the infinite power of the fusion suit. Harlan knew that after confronting Rich, he wasn't safe anymore. He went to the red dimension to hide, which is where he met his unfortunate fate. We also get a transcript of the meeting with the US Defense Department and find out exactly how that went. The US Defense Department wanted to pull out of the deal after receiving information from an insider that Rich is using the resources for something else. Mr. Rich asked up front if it was Harlan that told him this, to which they didn't give an answer. Harlan tried to stop Rich, and now we must finish what he started. I'm also glad that the story is not actually that the US department deemed the military suit too powerful. I should have known that that concept was too dumb of an idea to actually be the reason they invaded the lab. They simply wanted the more powerful and dangerous suit for themselves because, of course they would. On the note of these laptops, there is an absurd amount of these you can find in this game. Unfortunately for lore enthusiasts, even though they do provide backstory, I found it rather disappointing how there are barely any reoccurring names or characters. Outside of the occasional Nakayama mention, all of these are completely separated. It would have been cool if we got to see more notes of Catherine before actually meeting her. Or having a side story told throughout the terminals using 2 characters that we never see directly and only learn about through the laptops. Sure, at least 90% of players wouldn't notice nor care, but it would be great for those that do. After getting this legendary quote,
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
And promptly defeating everyone in the room, we are now tasked with getting the security card of Egbert, the head of security. We were trying to gain access to the main server before, and now we are trying to gain access to another main server, I guess? Come to think of it, most objectives in this mod are just, we need to gain access to the main server. We end up reaching Egbert in a small hideout filled with people, including guards that switch sides. If you know my Underhell review, you know that I love small hideouts with NPCs to interact with. Unfortunately, there isn't much interaction here. We do get to talk to one security guard, which I'll take. Egbert gives us the card and allows us to choose an upgrade. We either get some extra health, or we get to upgrade our Electroblast function to level 3. It's very cool we get a choice here. We are now close to Alice, and so are the soldiers. So in a timed event, we now have to go and rescue her. This involves fighting a security general, another mini-boss. Once we do that, we get a hug from her. A great one for everyone watching that happens to be touch stuff. She also picks like a peck of dust off you afterwards. Yet another great one for the loners out there. Also, I know it's the bare minimum, but genuinely shout out to the creator of this mod for not sexualizing Alice. It's simply making her a great character because of her personality, and keeping it at cute interactions like these instead of making her goon bait is infinitely better in every way. Though I would love to throw in another point for Kara here. At one point, Alice mentions that she couldn't hold Kara back from testing a drone body, and she flies to you to deliver your supplies. So cute. And also just an overall great interaction. How is this Half-Life 1? And to get back to the visuals for a final time, the large scale of the city was made perfect use of in order to show the progression of the player. We started near the street level, the towers scaling above us, but looking out of the window now, we are above all these same buildings. We have conquered the city. The visuals in this case not only look great, but were also made use of in a storytelling way. Ascending to the final stage, we literally get a view of the city getting smaller in an elevator together with Alice, which is also where she asks us out on a date. Yippee! The next stage is a bit tedious if you ask me. You keep running back and forth between rooms to start up one more generator or reroute one more thing to gain access to the main server that Alice and Kara are hacking together. Just in terms of motivation, it felt a bit repetitive. Chapter 5 reintroduced the task of hack the main server every 5 minutes. We do get another great puzzle though, that once again had the rerouting lasers, which got introduced shortly beforehand as well in a more simple task before doing a way larger one as a timed event. We get some more combat, drone interactions and everything else you've come to expect. We eventually discover that Project Fusion is being powered by external power sources, which turn out to be Mr. Rich himself being charged by crystals. Rich is already wearing the almost finished Project Fusion suit. And before we get to this awesome boss fight, I want to give you a more detailed review of this mod right now, because once I get to the ending of the summarization, most of you start watching anyway. This mod's most obvious standout feature is how great it looks for Half-Life 1 mod, and that isn't to be ignored. It looks as good as Black Mesa does and better in cases. And it doesn't only achieve that by looking higher quality than most Half-Life 1 mods. It uses these realistic graphics to paint pictures. It plays with colors perfectly. It creates unique environments and has each section stand out visually to the point that each of you watching probably has an image in mind for each chapter. This city view is one of the best things I've ever seen and I immediately need it as a wallpaper engine background. And on top of all that, the visuals are also used to tell this mod's story in certain ways. Like I just mentioned, with the scale of the city being used as a way to show the player how far they've come. Xash 3D isn't only used to improve the visuals however, we also got a ton of unique gameplay mechanics introduced, creating awesome puzzles and combat interactions. The moving portals in the Blue Dimension, the driving sections in the Red Dimension, the drone puzzles in Mega City and the countless other examples of great moments alongside the pretty much flawless level design, outside of a bit of missing signage here and there, makes these one of the smoothest gameplay experiences I've ever had. The custom NPCs like the mechs, drones and all the types of robots in the Blue Dimension play a big part in this as well, all of which make for awesome endings. It also isn't to be understated that this mod somehow managed to create an entire universe from the ground up and making it perfect. Sure, let's not act like a secret underground lab that deals with crystals from other dimensions isn't heavily inspired by Half-Life. It's incredible, however, how this mod introduced so many completely new environments to us and gave them all a unique aesthetic. The crystal tech labs of Chapter 1 are completely different from what we've seen in Half-Life 1. The Red Dimension is a marvelous example of what Xash 3D allows to create. The open world deserts as we activate the towers is insane. I mean, look at the design of these towers alone. The underground water areas. Water has never looked like this in Half-Life 1. I don't think I even need to say anything about the Blue Dimension. Creating this futuristic alien city filled with dwellers enslaved by a robot army led by an AI. Creating these alien skylines. The robot factory, the design and boss fight against Kara. And the fact that it all serves as a commentary on AI in society currently, be that intentionally or not. And then we have Mega City, a city environment that, if I didn't know better, I would believe was taken straight out of Cyberpunk. The fact we got to visit all the places that were ever hinted at in this story is so awesome. Our mod has never felt this complete. And to mention it once more, the soundtrack that goes along all this is a masterpiece. Without exaggerating, it feels like an honor to even get to play this mod. I don't feel worthy of experiencing this because it's so peak. Getting to the story aspect again, it was very clever to introduce Mr. Rich as a villain pretty much from the get-go. It's a very easy main goal to remember throughout the chapters while we go on all these different side quests in all the dimensions. Introducing Project Fusion as this mystery that we slowly find out more and more about was awesome as well. And then having both plotlines of Mr. Rich and Project Fusion merge into a singular large thread throughout the story is great and makes this final fight meaningful. This is also thanks to the way the characters are written and how much you directly interact with them. It's super easy to fall in love with each of them. Going into the boss fight, I was super scared at the thought of any of them dying, be that Alice, Kara, Bennett, or even minor characters like Tony Darlow or Catherine. To get back to some downsides, having two different suits that play an important part in the story that both make the wearer unstoppable is a bit confusing. The other big negative aspect being the AI voices, which as I mentioned will thankfully be replaced. I seriously can't wait for that. I already love the characters and with real voices replacing them soon, they'll only be all the more lovable. So, with my big review out of the way, let us get into the final level of this mod and find out who dies and who doesn't. You fight against Mr. Rich and his army. Mr. Rich is wearing the fusion suit that is currently being powered by crystals, similar to the robot we fought previously in the Blue Dimension that introduced us nicely to this concept, at a smaller scale. Kara will hack open the crystal chambers and we have to destroy them to have a chance of beating. And right off the bat, there's an immediate vibe you get with this boss fight that just makes it awesome. Specifically, I think it somehow managed to capture that childhood boss fight experience every gamer knows. Do you remember being like 10 years old, getting to the boss of your favorite PS2 game, and it genuinely being the hardest task you've ever done? But you also had no other games, and so you had no choice but to just continue trying. When you actually had to try hard to make use of all your skills to try and beat it, tears streaming down your face on your 50th attempt, I feel this is often lost these days. Sure, you can have an Elden Ring boss and you need to dodge 700 times and get a swing in every opportunity you get. This is a challenge, but it's more tedious than anything. Then there's boss fights that are too easy, a typical thing in Half-Life mods. A helicopter or gunship boss fight in the case of Half-Life 2 mods can really only be so exciting. A meaningful final boss fight is a lost art form, at least in the Half-Life modding scene for the most part. I am glad to say that thanks to the amount of new enemies this mod has introduced, the new types of attacks and all the weapons, this boss fight really feels epic. You will need to use your dashes, carefully time your electro blasts, and you have to switch weapons and get ammo refills carefully to have a chance of making it. I died a few times, but it did feel manageable. Every death I had felt deserved. You can't sit back and relax here, but neither does it feel unfair. The perfect balance. And for anyone that's a fan of playing games on hard, I believe this will be a boss fight to remember. Waves of enemies spawn in while Kara hacks open the chamber so you can destroy the crystals one after another. Realistically, and finally enough for the final wave, the soldiers actually retreat. I wouldn't throw myself in the meat grinder that is James Smith either. And with that happening, what non-human enemy this mod has already introduced makes for a perfect final wave fight? Correct, the mech. And how do you make it special enough for a boss fight? Correct, 2 mechs. As Andrew Rich does the typical villain taunts, you also got Kara, Bennett and Alice commenting over the radio. And for the grand finale, Kara even joins along as a drone for the final wave with an awesome intro.
I also have presents. This is a little surprise from me and Kara.
Let's see if I still got my flying skills.
Cinema. For the very final stage, you now fight Andrew Rich in the fusion suit, causing him to regenerate health at a rapid pace. The only thing that I found to work is placing traps, which was a ton of fun. It's great to have it be a unique challenge that isn't just holding W plus mouse 1. This boss fight is the perfect culmination of this mod's characters, weapons, mechanics and story. It's perfect. Once we finally defeat him, we get one final cutscene. Bennett offers Alice the position as director of Crystal Tech HQ. Kara's also promised her own robot body, and we still have that day to go on with Alice. Unfortunately, as the camera zooms over the city we have now conquered, we never get to see any of this. I was really hoping there to be an epilogue as the credits roll, or at least as a reward for unlocking all the achievements, but this doesn't seem to be a thing. I really wanted to see Kara and the date we go on with Alice, but this doesn't seem to be a thing. Overall, Diffusion is the most impressive and also just the general best Half-Life 1 mod to ever be made. And even if you've watched this far and know the story, it is still worth playing. Not only because I didn't even tell you about every great moment, but also because it is simply one of the most fun products I've ever played in general. It being a Half-Life 1 mod is just a bonus to that, so please consider checking it out and downloading it. There's even custom deathmatch maps and servers that I haven't yet mentioned. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, or perhaps even becoming a member. And let me know what you think of this mod in the comments. Lastly, a massive shout out to Aineko for making this mod. You deserve all the flowers, my dude. And yeah, otherwise, thank you for watching.
Unforgiven is one of Clint Eastwood's greatest westerns, so let's take a look at 20 things you didn't know about the movie, including the original version that you never got to see, how the cast almost looked completely different, and its official remake that you've probably never even heard of. So Unforgiven started out as an original screenplay titled The William Money Killings, and it was written by an up-and-coming screenwriter called David Webb Peoples, who was apparently inspired to write the script upon reading the 1975 Western novel The Shootist, which was later adapted into a film starring John Wayne, in which he plays an aging gunslinger forced to confront his past, while reckoning with the influence he has on a younger man fascinated by his violent reputation. Peoples also took a lot of inspiration from Taxi Driver, especially in regards to its grounded approach to violence and death. However, once he finished the script for Unforgiven in 1976, it was not immediately picked up. Instead, his big break came when he was hired by Ridley Scott to rework the script for Blade Runner, before going on to co-write other films such as Ladyhawke and Leviathan. So sometime later, the script for Unforgiven was eventually optioned to be made into a film by the famous director Francis Ford Coppola, best known for The Godfather and Apocalypse Now. And upon acquiring the script, the director approached actor John Malkovich about playing the role of William Money. But Coppola was ultimately unable to raise the money required to develop the project, which in hindsight proved to be a blessing for Malkovich, who said, "I would have been a total failure. Who would have wanted to see that? I wouldn't." Now, following this failed attempt to get Unforgiven made, the script was eventually sent to Clint Eastwood, but it instead landed on the desk of his trusted associate, Sonia Chernitz, who previously worked on the story for the outlaw Josie Wales. And after reading the script for Unforgiven, she made it very clear to Clint Eastwood just how much she hated it, criticizing it for its rough language and basic story, before sending a now infamous memo that read, "It really is an insult to this company which has always had high standards, even to accept a property like this, which isn't worth your time or my time. I can't think of one good thing to say about it, except maybe get rid of it fast." But luckily, Eastwood decided to ignore the memo and read the script anyway, immediately falling in love with it. So after acquiring the script for Unforgiven in the early 80s, Eastwood was keen to get the movie made, but he ultimately decided to put the script away in a drawer for the future and focus on other movies instead. And apparently, the reason for this was that although the script described the character of William Money as a man in his late 30s, Clint Eastwood felt that the story would make a lot more sense if the character was older, so he decided to wait until he was in his 60s before tackling the role. And in the meantime, he directed and starred in other popular westerns such as The Outlaw Josie Wales and Pale Rider, as well as numerous other movies. But the whole time, he knew that he had Unforgiven in his back pocket, saying, "It was kind of a little plum I was savouring. It's like you have something good on your plate, and you're saying, I'll eat this last." So it took until 1992 before Clint Eastwood finally decided to direct Unforgiven, returning to the genre that made him a star, following a series of box office disappointments, including The Rookie and Pink Cadillac. Now, ever since Clint Eastwood first read the script for Unforgiven, he'd always been quietly confident that the movie was going to be something special, and wanted a cast that would reflect that. So rather than going for reliable, lesser-known character actors like he'd done for most of his previous westerns, Eastwood instead went for big-name stars straight off the bat. So for the role of English Bob, Eastwood initially reached out to Jeremy Irons, but he turned him down. So he called Richard Harris to offer him the role instead, who just happened to be watching High Plains Drifter when Eastwood called, leading him to believe that it was a prank. But when Harris realized that it was genuine, he immediately said yes, later believing it to be fate. Meanwhile, around the same time, Morgan Freeman was filming Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Kevin Costner, who told him that there was a part in Unforgiven that he felt Freeman would be perfect for. So the actor reached out directly to Clint Eastwood about playing the character of Ned Logan, which Eastwood apparently felt was such a great fit that he didn't even consider anyone else. Likewise, actor Saul Rubinek also heard about Unforgiven while filming a romantic comedy called Man Trouble with Jack Nicholson, who apparently advised his co-star to make an extra effort to ensure his audition tape looked professional, which ended up being the thing that helped it stand out when Clint Eastwood eventually picked him. Now, for the Schofield Kid, Eastwood did consider Sam Rockwell, but eventually opted for the relatively unknown TV actor James Woolvett, handing him the biggest role of his career to date. And for the role of Strawberry Alice, Clint Eastwood cast Frances Fisher, who happened to be dating at the time, before later having a daughter together called Francesca Eastwood, who just recently appeared in her father's latest film, Juror Number 2. Now, easily the most important casting in the movie was that of its main antagonist, Little Bill Daggett. And Eastwood was set on the late, great Gene Hackman for the role, but he'd actually already been approached about starring in the film by Francis Ford Coppola, and he just wasn't interested, as he felt he'd already taken on too many violent roles. But Eastwood insisted that Hackman reconsider, which he did, eventually coming round to the idea of playing a villainous lawman, as he felt that it was timely and important after the recent Rodney King incident, in which a black American was the victim of police brutality. And as a result of this change of heart, Gene Hackman absolutely stole the show as Daggett, even winning an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Now, when it came to who should shoot the movie, in the past, Clint Eastwood would have typically called upon the services of cinematographer Bruce Surtees, who had shot all of his westerns from Joe Kidd through to Pale Rider. However, for Unforgiven, he decided to go with the cinematographer Jack N. Green, having previously worked together on Heartbreak Ridge, The Deadpool, and Pink Cadillac. And Green did an excellent job, using muted tones and natural light to invoke a richly atmospheric, gritty realism that really played into the themes of the movie. And as a result, Unforgiven was nominated for Best Cinematography at the Academy Awards. But since then, Green has turned his attention to shooting much more light-hearted films, such as 50 First Dates, 40-Year-Old Virgin, and Hot Tub Time Machine. Now, as for the score, Clint Eastwood hired composer Lenny Nyhorse, who'd met while serving in the US Army in the 1950s. And although he was only a jazz musician at the time, he later worked as a composer on Pale Rider, and an orchestrator on other westerns such as Chato's Land and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. So Eastwood felt that he would be a perfect choice for Unforgiven, and their working relationship was so good that Nyhorse actually allowed Eastwood to compose the main theme himself, laying the foundation for them to work together again on numerous other movies, including Mystic River, Million Dollar Baby, and Gran Torino. So despite Unforgiven being one of the most famous American westerns of all time, it was actually shot entirely in Canada, even though that was never originally the plan. And this was apparently all because of its cinematographer Jack N. Green, who, while working on other films, an official from their filmmaking union, why Clint Eastwood had never once shot a movie in the country. So Green explained that whenever Clint Eastwood makes a film, he always uses the same loyal crew behind the scenes, which wouldn't be possible in Canada, as shooting in a foreign country usually requires the director to hire locals. So after hearing this, the Canadian Union offered Eastwood a deal, in which they would waive the normal work rules and allow him to use his own crew members, as long as they had already worked with him on at least 5 movies, which all of his team had. As a result, Unforgiven was ultimately filmed in Alberta, Canada, 60 miles away from the nearest city, providing the film with picturesque sweeping prairies and untouched landscapes that really added to the visual identity
Welcome
of
to
the
my
movie.
channel.
Pause.
Another advantage of shooting in Canada was that there was plenty of room for the fictional town of Big Whiskey. And just like with High Plains Drifter, Clint Eastwood insisted on building a full-scale western town, complete with no false fronts and totally authentic interiors, which all in all ended up taking 32 days to construct. So given how much effort Clint Eastwood was putting into making Unforgiven feel like an authentic western, he decided to go one step further by banning all motorized vehicles on set. And the main reason for this was to avoid any anachronistic tire tracks making it into the final film. But Eastwood also believed it would be a good way of psychologically locking his cast and crew into the time period, actively encouraging them to use horses and wagons instead of cars. So one big disadvantage of shooting in Alberta is that it was an area prone to unpredictable weather, especially rain and flash flooding. But ironically, Unforgiven was filming during a rare dry period, meaning that Clint Eastwood was forced to fake the dramatic rainstorm that features at the climax of the movie. There was also an unexpected snowstorm that hit the area towards the end of the shoot, which Eastwood smartly decided to make the most of, featuring the snowfall in the scene where Money's recovering from his wounds. So once Clint Eastwood finally finished the film, he felt compelled to dedicate it to Sergio and Don. This of course referred to the famous directors Sergio Leone and Don Siegel, with the latter having passed away just months before production started on Unforgiven. And the reason Eastwood felt the need to pay tribute to them in this way was because he viewed them as his biggest filmmaking mentors, who between them provided him with his most iconic roles as the Man with No Name and Dirty Harry. It also proved fitting in that Unforgiven was the first movie that Clint Eastwood had directed that was universally regarded as a masterpiece, cementing his reputation as a director who was now just as talented as the pair that he learned his craft from. Now once Unforgiven was complete, the finished film was presented 4 days ahead of schedule to Warner Brothers, who were delighted with how the movie had turned out. But apparently there were discussions internally between executives about the idea of slightly trimming its runtime, However, the problem was that nobody had the nerve to broach the topic to Eastwood, out of fear of how he might react. So in the end, Unforgiven remained uncut, with a runtime of 2 hours and 11 minutes. So as much as Clint Eastwood loved the original script for Unforgiven, he'd never actually got a chance to meet its writer, David Webb Peoples. So Eastwood decided to invite the screenwriter to the studio to watch the final film, and when he arrived, he made the decision to sit away from Eastwood during the screening, so that the director couldn't see his face, as he was genuinely worried about how his script had been adapted. But upon watching the film, he realised that he need not have worried, as he was amazed with what Eastwood had done with the script, saying, "Without changing a word, Clint made the script tougher, more uncompromising, without slickness, and the heart was still in it. If there was ever a picture that belonged to its director, it's Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven." So when it came time to release Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood insisted on a low-key pre-release campaign for the movie, as he was apparently confident enough in its quality that he felt it would naturally find an audience. He also wanted people that did go to see it to come away from the cinema with a sense of discovery, so as to encourage word-of-mouth buzz. So following a summer of blockbusters including Batman Returns, Sister Act and Lethal Weapon 3, Unforgiven hit cinemas in August 1992 with very little fanfare. However, it ended up having one of the highest August opening weekends of any film up to that point, performing better than any Clint Eastwood film that had come before, ultimately grossing $159.2 million on a budget of just $14.4 million. Now, despite its box office success and popularity with general audiences, critics were generally more undecided about the movie. For instance, Hal Hinson of the Washington Post said, "By now, Eastwood has little more than a paint-by-numbers approach to acting. As a result, we relate to Money more as a compendium of Eastwood's earlier characters." But easily Unforgiven's most famous detractors were the well-respected critics Robert Ebert and Gene Siskel, who said,
"I thought that the picture really was overdrawn, and then I couldn't understand some of the characters, why they were stuffed in there. The Richard Harris character isn't really necessary at all. It could have been more of a showdown with Heckman and Eastwood. I wanted Eastwood's character to be enlarged, frankly. I thought he was sort of small within the picture, and great looking to be sure, but lifeless."
Now, in fairness, to their credit, they did eventually re-evaluate the movie, as Robert Ebert later praised the movie in the Chicago Sun-Times, saying, "It has the elements of a crime picture, but the freedom of an art film. Unforgiven uses a genre as a way to study human nature. That implacable moral balance in which good eventually silences evil is at the heart of the Western, and Eastwood is not shy about saying so. So nowadays, Unforgiven is universally adored by critics and audiences alike, and viewed by many to be Clint Eastwood's finest achievement as both a director and an actor." Now, following the critical and commercial success of Unforgiven, the movie slowly but surely became an unlikely awards contender. And the reason it was unlikely was because westerns were typically overlooked in that regard, and despite his long, memorable career in cinema, Clint Eastwood had never so much as been nominated for an Oscar, leading him to believe that he would never win one. But that all changed with Unforgiven, as it was nominated in 9 categories at the 65th Academy Awards, winning Oscars for Best Picture, Director, Supporting Actor, and Film Editing. So not only was Unforgiven the first Clint Eastwood movie to win an Oscar, but it was also the 3rd Western in history to ever win Best Picture, alongside Cimarron and Dances with Wolves. So over 20 years after the release of Unforgiven, the iconic Western got an unexpected Japanese-language remake starring Ken Watanabe, which essentially transported the plot into a samurai movie set in post-feudal Japan. Yet despite this, the movie manages to retain the tone and moral complexity of the original, while hitting most of the same story beats, and at times even recreating shots from Unforgiven. So the movie went down really well with critics and audiences alike, boasting beautiful cinematography and excellent performances. It also proved to be a fitting full-circle moment, in that Clint Eastwood would never have risen to stardom in the Western genre if not for his breakout role in A Fistful of Dollars, which was famously an unofficial remake of a Japanese samurai movie called Yojimbo. So given all the themes of aging and redemption that Unforgiven explores, many naturally assumed that the movie was intended to be Clint Eastwood's final western. But that wasn't necessarily the case, because at no point during its production did Eastwood consciously view the film as his farewell to the genre. Although, on reflection, he conceded that if he were to try and make another western, it would likely end up being either a rehash of previous plotlines or an imitation of someone else's work, leading him to say that if there is going to be a last one, this is a perfect one. So outside of his 2021 neo-western Cry Macho, Clint Eastwood has never properly returned to the western genre, despite continuing to act and direct well into his 90s. But this restraint has only made Unforgiven feel all the more significant, as Eastwood managed to leave the genre on an all-time high, ultimately respecting the fact that Unforgiven was the perfect conclusion to his legendary career in a genre that he'll forever be the face of. But let me know below, do you think he should have made another western, or was Unforgiven really the perfect ending? And if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and it would be massively appreciated if you could leave the video a like. Also, if you're a fan of Clint Eastwood, you might want to check out this video right here.
What happened? He ain't killed? What's going on?
I guess.
Slim, give me some water, please. Please, Slim. I'm bleeding, Slim.
Get a drink of water, god damn it.
There is no point in killing the Ark in Ark Raiders. Hear me out. I should preface this by saying I love Embark, I love the game, and I've played 120 hours in the first 30 days since it's been released, which is...
No z tym. To jest szkafy, bo byś często. Sada će do 2 neka drva, posliš radiček. Će do 2 drva da vrati ovo. Čekaj sutra popodne kad se vratim s posla da bacimo drva. Kjera će ono I'm sorry.
A? Mamy czego tam.
Mati biznis. Zva Marić. Nije Marić ostaje pare, nego i kao ono, kao tu će Marić kad ulazi, tu ga bukvalno vreba, znaš. Je čuo da Marić uzima flaše, kao fazon, nema para. I onda se onda ga odvuka iz kuće da ga, kao, njegov stručno mišljenje, znaš, da pita ga za drvo. Marić ne može s tim.
Šta mu rekao?
A nema pojma, kao, da, upravo je ovo.
Šta će mu reći?
Pa šta da kažem?
Nije mu nešto reći.
Kaže mu jes i da bude, samo da mu da lovu da ovaj ide dalje da radi, znaš, traži tačno.
Još danas da se skine više s ovoga. Vidim, pauze imam, ali mislim da me neće više posao gledati.
Što?
A nešto da gledam. Ladno, a i puno 10 sati, tako je. Jest dobra kinta i to.
Ga. Danas Radim Gu. A Sutra Vu. Tek Sutra Popad Nimam Vramena. Sta the Radim. Tarko Je Kako Je. Odo.